It is true that there is a very large market for SUVs, whether it be subcompact, compact, full-size, you name it, yes, there is. But it doesn't mean that the sedan has gone the way of the dodo. Nope, not at all. In fact, in a setting where the greatest player, the Vios, has already made its mark and staked its claim on our country, things heated up when a new player entered that particular segment. Now, as important as the Vios is, competitive alternatives are equally important. For instance, the City, the perpetual rival of the Vios. In fact, we even have a Comparo about it, which you can find in the links below. Then you've got the Almera. It was dormant for a couple of years, but then out of nowhere, bam, it's back, and with a turbo too. And then there's the new kid on the block. Man, I gotta tell you, you gotta have dumplings the size of giant shophouse to go up against the likes of Toyota and these guys. And so here it is. Truth is, they're here today to answer one simple question that so many buyers out there have, which is, if they're all the same price, which one should I actually get? Much props to our sponsor, Aguila Auto Glass, and congratulations on 70 years, by the way. More impressive is the 50,000 glass installations they accomplish every year. 50,000! Able to cover 103 brands and 8,000 models in stock, they can change your windshield in just 2 hours at any of their 25 locations in Luzon. Satisfied customer here, by the way, 1999 Audi, back in 2005, C5 branch. Yeah, that was me. And if that's not impressive enough, car can't move? Bruh. They deliver. See. Get in touch with Aguila Auto Glass through their website, Facebook, and or hotline numbers found on the screen. No pane too large, no curve too complex. Aguila Auto Glass can retrofit any panel, stock, or bespoke. Remember, if it ain't the red eagle head logo, it ain't worth it. Caw-caw! I've always wanted to do that. It won't take half a second to realize there is a big player missing from this lineup. We more than understand its importance, features, and price points, of course. The Vios obviously is the king of sales. However, even that won't stop us from perhaps finding a more than worthy adversary from these examples we have here today. So we've got the categories for our Comparo today, which you know and love, starting from size, tech, engine, you know the drill. And then there is one more category that we've been dying to try out, and we can finally do it now, which is the Hill Challenge. And that's there because of the ultimate Filipino Tito question, which is, will it actually make it to Baguio? We're obviously nowhere near Baguio, but there is a mountain right behind us with some twisty roads and some steep inclines. And I'm also not going to be alone inside the automobile, which would mean that we're going to be able to provide you with some really great feedback on that. Now, since we have 3 cars here today, just like our previous Comparos, we're going to give the winner 3 points, followed by 2 points for second place, and then 1 point for last place. Let's begin. Before we do, I know that we posed the question, if they're all the same price, which one should I get? Meaning that they're all within the same price range. And yes, they definitely are within the same price range because they fall above 900,000 Philippine pesos and just below 1 million Philippine pesos. However, there is a pretty big gap that, well, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention. Allow me to explain. See, the City comes in at 989,000 Philippine pesos, while the Almera comes in at 998,000 Philippine pesos, which is really, really close by. But the Emgrand came into the picture and decided to say, I want to blow you guys all out of the water, coming in at 908,000 Philippine pesos. Mind you, the two variants that we got here are not the Sport or the RS. We wanted to basically pace it all along within the same price range. Now, we realized people would have been up in arms if we didn't mention the price, and rightfully so, because there is such a large gap. I mean, 90,000 Philippine pesos could mean, well, utilities and tuition, right? So it must be a category, which is why for this particular category, we're gonna give 1 point to the Almera, we're gonna give 2 points to the City, and a full 3 points to the Emgrand. Next category is tech and features. Now, in this day and age, cars should have, well, certain modern features that we should actually have inside the automobile, considering the price that we are paying for them. So there are 5 things that I picked out that the car should have. I'm talking about safety features, cruise control, a reverse camera with parking sensors, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and of course, rear toys like air vents and a charging point. Now, in the City, you've got 4 airbags, which is good. Great start. You've also got cruise control. Excellent. You do have a reverse camera. Unfortunately, there are no parking sensors, but the head unit does have Android and Apple capabilities, which is also a good thing. Now, for the rear passengers, there may not be a charging point, but there are at least 2 air vents, which I would argue air vents are actually much more welcome than charging points. In the Almera, it starts off with a bit of a deficit. See, it only has 2 airbags and it does not have cruise control. However, it does have a reverse camera with rear parking sensors as well. And it's the only one of the 3 that has a 360-degree camera, which is actually pretty darn nice. Now, it does also have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto to keep everybody entertained. Unfortunately, for the rear, there are no air vents, but there are 2 USB charging points, which again, I'll stick to my first argument, which is that I would rather see air vents rather than charging points. Now, in the Emgrand, it starts off really well because it's got a total of 6 airbags for the cabin, which is great, and it also has cruise control. Now, it does have a reverse camera with rear parking sensors as well. Unfortunately, well, it does have mirroring, but it doesn't have Android or Apple capabilities, which may kind of suck. The good thing, though, is that it ends on a high note because it does have air vents at the rear and a rear charging point as well. It's plain to see that the Emgrand ticks the most number of boxes, so we're obviously going to award it 3 points. The difficult part is trying to figure out which one gets second and which one gets third. Now, in the form of the Almera, it does have a very famously cold air conditioning system. However, there are no air vents in the back, and regardless of how strong the air conditioning is, I'm talking about passenger comfort, you want those air vents at the rear. Although, I'll give it to the Almera because it does have a 360-degree camera. In the City, however, well, you do have those air vents in the back, which is nice. And then you do have a reverse camera, not 360, but you do have a reverse camera. And I will argue that cruise control is actually pretty important. The one deciding factor that I had was in terms of combining the price and the airbags as well. This only has 2, while this has 4, which means that we're gonna give it to the City 2 points, and then the Almera 1 point. So as it stands, the Almera has 2 points, the City has 4, while the Emgrand leads with 6 points. Our next category is comfort and space, to get a feel for what it's going to be like for your rear passengers. Legroom in the City is actually pretty darn good for the reason that the seats are actually higher up, and so your legs can actually come closer to you, which means even if you have like really long legs, it's not going to be an issue. Headroom is kinda okay, nothing spectacular, and again, as you guys would know, I'm not also the tallest person on the planet. Now, elbow room is good if you're obviously going to be just 2 passengers back here. A third passenger wouldn't be too much of a hassle because the tunnel is actually pretty low, so if you need to squeeze in, that'll be just about right. The seat material is, well, it's cloth, obviously, but it's a good type of cloth, meaning that if you do perspire, it kind of gets eaten up by the seats. Not great for the seats, but at least you're not perspiring the whole time. And it's all black, which gives it a very clean look to it, with a little bit of a pattern here and there. The Almera too has some pretty good legroom as well. I guess it's maybe because I'm a really short guy, but no, the legroom is actually pretty good. And then there's a slight advantage to the headroom because you're sitting a little bit lower. Now, as again with the City, elbow room isn't going to be an issue if you're going to be 2 passengers. A third passenger, he might or she might have actually a little bit of a troublesome time because the tunnel inside the Almera is a little bit higher. The good part is that since there's no air vents here, the third passenger gets all the air from the center. That's actually pretty nice. Now, the material is also cloth, like the City, but this time it's a little bit more on the rough side. But at the very least, there are more tones here in the back. You've got dark, a little bit of gray, and then some white on the edges, which actually it's a nice touch. It doesn't make you feel so claustrophobic in here is what I'm trying to get at. Now inside the Emgrand, to be honest with you, it feels like we're in a completely different segment here altogether. Okay, so legroom is actually pretty decent, but the headroom is actually quite impressive. Oh, and I thought I just mentioned this. This chair is powered, and it's the only driver's seat that's powered amongst these 3 that we have here today. But anyway, back to the comfort of the rear passengers. So it's actually quite decent. Having a third passenger won't be an issue because the tunnel is really quite low. But obviously, again, like the other 2 cars, if it's just a left and a right passenger, just the 2 passengers in the rear, then it's gonna be really, really comfortable. Now, obviously, as you can see, it's leather in here, unlike the others which are cloth. And that will be somewhat of an argument. You don't really know if you want leather in a small automobile inside the Philippines because truthfully, it can get quite hot. And then there's also the issue that although it's pretty nice, it's very nice actually, this white on blue with the perforated side, perforated middle, it's the lumbar support that's actually quite aggressive. See, you expect that lumbar support when you are a driver, but not really as a passenger. And it kind of pushes your lower back, well, quite well actually, that you will need to get used to it, or at the very least, it forces you to sit up. But overall, yeah, I'm still digging this white color on blue though. Gotta hand it to them. It looks pretty. So for the category of comfort and space, truth be told, we were gonna give 3rd place to the Nissan Almera. Well, because of its cloth material that's a little bit more on the scratchy side, and then the fact that there's also a tunnel found in the back, which would make loading a 3rd passenger kind of a issue for that 3rd passenger. But in this case, we're actually gonna give 2 points to the Nissan Almera and give it 2nd place. Allow me to explain. We're having issues really between myself and the crew trying to figure out which one deserves 1st place or 3rd place. In the fact that the interior of the Emgrand is definitely nicer. It looks more polished, so to speak, but it is leather and it can get quite warm. And then there's the issue of the lumbar support. In the City, it's actually a bit more relaxed. Yes, it's cloth, but nonetheless, you feel a bit more comfortable inside sitting down. Like I said, a bit more relaxed. And these issues have been boggling us for the good hour now. So we've decided, just for this particular category, to give them both a tie and a share of 1st place. So 3 points goes to the Emgrand, 3 points goes to the City, and 2 points for the Almera. As it stands, the Almera is at 4 points, the City at 7, and the Emgrand still leads with 9 points. The next category is boot space. It is, after all, a family automobile, and you're going to be putting groceries and maybe the things of the kids when you're going out of town. So the more space that you have in a compact car, all the better. This category is actually going to be pretty straightforward because the boot space of the City comes in at 519 liters of space. When we move to the Almera, it's a little bit smaller, unfortunately. You're only looking at 474 liters of space. Now, in the Emgrand, when you do finally open her up, you are looking at 500 liters flat. So the clear winner would definitely be the City. The thing, though, is regardless of how much of a winner the City is with 500 liters of space, it still can't carry the one basic thing that Filipinos have, which is a balikbayan box. None of them, not even the winner itself, can fit a balikbayan box in the back because the opening is actually quite small. You can put it in from the 2nd row, but that would be like another story altogether. The thing though is, if you are looking for space in a smaller automobile, perhaps maybe look into, say, the City hatchback. That thing's got a lot of space. So a quick recap of points will show that the Almera is in third place, the City is in second, but is slowly crawling up closer to the Emgrand. Now, beauty may well be in the eye of the beholder, but we had to make a decision as to which car actually looked best. Kinda argued about it a little bit, but we did come to a very diplomatic solution. The City for us plays it a little bit on the safe side. It does have 16-inch wheels, but it's not exactly a radical design. So again, like I said, it plays safe. And the fact that it's got halogen lights, yeah, we're gonna relegate it to third place with just a single point. The Almera, on the other hand, may look a little bit more nouveau. It's got sharper lines, could get old really fast, but at the very least, it's striking in any way whatsoever. And the fact that it's got LED lights, well, that puts it into second place. So we're gonna give the Emgrand a total of 3 points and first place, simply because, well, the design and look of it doesn't make it look like a subcompact. It actually looks like a pretty large sedan. Then it's got the biggest wheels of the bunch, and it's got LED headlamps that, well, do a little dance. Kind of pretty too. Next up, we come to the mechanical part of the Comparo, which is engine and fuel efficiency. So first up is the City. It's got a 1.5-liter 4-cylinder gasoline engine mated to a CVT that produces 119 horses and 145 newton-meters of torque. Now, the City can do about 8.5 kilometers per liter inside the city, but then on the highway, a heck of a lot better at 22, and it can carry 45 liters of fuel. Now, with those figures, whether the fuel consumption and the power torque figures as well, we're gonna give this guy second place, and you'll understand why when we move on. Now, the Almera. Now, the Almera has the distinction of having the smallest capacity engine in this Comparo, which is a 1-liter mated to a CVT, but it does have a turbo, which means the horsepowers may be low at 99, but its newton-meters of torque comes up to 152. The Emgrand, like the City, carries as well a 1.5-liter 4-cylinder gasoline engine with a CVT, but it only produces 102 horses and 142 newton-meters of torque. Now, what those power figures translate to is that the Almera is actually very fuel efficient in the case that it can do 21.5 kilometers per liter on the highway. The Emgrand, not bad, can do 21. But in the city, see, that's where the Almera has an ace, because it can do 14 kilometers per liter, while the Emgrand is relegated to about 10. And just because you need to know, the Almera carries only about 35 liters of fuel, while the Emgrand carries a massive 50. So I'm thinking fuel efficiency is much better also on this, simply because it carries much less fuel. Well, it just basically means you'll have to go to the gasoline station more often. But still, I also want to point out that this has a heck of a lot more usable torque than this particular car. So I'm going to say that the Almera will definitely take first place and 3 points, while the Emgrand is relegated to third place with only 1 point. The beauty about this is we don't just necessarily have to talk about it. Let's drive it on our Hill Challenge, which is going to happen right now. Okay, so first up will be the City for the Hill Challenge. Now, mind you, we tried to simulate this as equally as possible in the sense that all 3 cars have the exact same fuel load, which is to the brim, and the passenger complement is Jack in the front seat and then Joey in the back seat. So essentially, we're about 2 Jacks inside this car, if you think about it. So, here we go. Now, the City, although it is a CVT, it doesn't feel like it's actually lacking in power. Plus, I haven't even put it into sport yet, which I will right now. And by doing so, it's actually much more responsive. Obviously, it's not going to be like, let's say, a sports car carving the mountains, no. But at the same time, when I step on the accelerator, it's not as if I'm waiting for something to happen. The car does definitely move. Not with the brisk of lightning, mind you, but yet the car definitely is moving. And I'm not having any issues with the steering whatsoever, and it's actually pretty much of a joy to drive. Again, like I mentioned, this is going to be a test where everything is equal, where the weight of the fuel to the brim and the passenger complement is the same. Obviously, the Almera will have a lighter load on it because it only carries 35 liters of fuel. As the inclines do get a bit steeper, you can definitely hear the engine roar. It gives you a little bit of confidence that the engine sounds really good too, like as if it's trying its best. Not that it's ringing it out like I can't do it. No, it definitely can. Every once in a while, there is a little bit of a lull in power. Not that I'm completely waiting on it to come in. No, it's just that I feel that the engine noise is not necessarily equal to the amount of power that I was actually expecting. What would have been nice is if I was given a little bit more control, in the sense that I wanted an upshift and a downshift capability kind of a thing. But no, I'm relegated to just sport, which granted is actually well and good enough because it is an automatic, and like I mentioned so many times before, it's not a sports car. But it would have been nice to be able to have even more control of the automobile, in the sense of choosing what particular gear I wanted to come on. What I am missing, though, is the ability to control the gears, the simulated gears that they are. I do realize that this is a CVT, but there are some CVTs out there that give you that option to be able to select whatever gear it is that you want to drive on. For instance, now that we're going downhill, the rev does catch it, but if I'm in a rush, then the rev is kind of low, and it allows the car to roll. If I had control, I'd be able to put it in a much higher gear, or rather lower gear is what I'm trying to get at, to get more feel of the engine and a little bit of engine braking at the same time. Nonetheless, as I am going downhill, what I want to touch on now is the brakes. And nope, I have no complaints on the brakes whatsoever. The car turns in properly, even with the load that we have, and driving, I feel secure. Now, the smallest of the bunch in terms of displacement would be this, the Almera, because it's only a 1 liter, but it's a turbo, and because of that turbo, it has the highest amount of torque, meaning going up hills shouldn't be an issue. And I'm trying that out right now, and yep, it is definitely peppy. Same amount of fuel, which is full, a couple of liters shy, of course, but then we've got Jack and Joey inside the car along with myself. And really, this thing feels like a tiny car that is pulling. To be honest with you, it really feels like a tiny car which is fun to drive fast, instead of a large car with a large displacement driving it slow. You know that thing? This one is definitely much more fun to drive. And it doesn't sound like the engine is actually hurting that bad when I press the pedal to the metal. And it feels good too. It feels very light. It feels very quick on its feet. I like that. One thing I'd like to note, though, is that there is no sport mode or gears on this Almera. Like, I can only put it in low and that's about it. But truthfully, because of the amount of torque that's in this car and because of how light it is, it really doesn't need it. I don't feel as if that the car is having a hard time at all, carrying all this weight, going faster than I actually should, up hills and turns that, frankly, it seems like it wants more of these hills. This is amazing. This is a city car that is carving up hills. I've never done this before with this car, and it's a lot of fun. Sorry, boys, just hang on back there. Now, on the flip side, going downhill, it still feels pretty confident. It's not like the back is giving way or anything, and the brakes up front are enough to slow the automobile down and the current weight that we have. So yeah, no major issues there. Couple of tire squeaks here and there, but then it just adds to the sportiness, doesn't it? Kinda unsafe, but still, it sounds good. Unlike Geely's other products, This Emgrand is a naturally aspirated gasoline engine, so there is no turbo. And really, like its interior, which is just so chill, the engine is very, very chill too. The transmission is extremely chill because there is that lull that you expect from a CVT, especially when you're going uphill like this. And it feels like it's a little bit underpowered. Now, mind you, I'm sure in the city it's fine, but on this particular hill test that we're doing, yeah, it's when you step on the accelerator, you hear a lot of noise, but you don't really feel a lot of results. It's making it up the hill nonetheless, but really, compared to the other two, yeah, there is a very large difference. There is sport mode, which I'm about to engage now, and let's see how that fares. Well, unfortunately, it just feels as if that the engine has gotten even louder, but not much else is going on. I don't feel as if that there is much progression as there was when we were just on drive. So really, I'm probably better off in drive, just burying the throttle and hoping it'll make it up the hill. I exaggerate. Obviously, it will make it up the hill. It's just that it won't give you as much oomph and as much gusto as the other two cars have. Come on, baby. Come on, come on, come on. Less noise, more action. Come on. A little less conversation, a little more action, please. Come on, give me some Elvis. The thing about going uphill is that it struggles to find the ideal ratio, the sweet spot between the gears. Because every once in a while you hear the engine go, wah, and then something much quieter and then much louder again. It's just trying to find that sweet spot to help you get up. Going downhill, however, I must say that the Emgrand is the only one of the Comparo that is all disc brakes. The other two cars were discs up front and drum at the rear. Now, the power of the brakes is actually very good. It's just that I felt that, well, there is a little bit of a sway of some sort. I find it strange. It's like the car is definitely gripping, but the butt is like, well, it's like a sexy dancer trying to show you its moves. Along with the fact that the engine has the least amount of torque, I also have to add that the car is also the biggest of the three in the Comparo. It is the longest in terms of wheelbase. So all that weight is probably a factor also why the engine may have a hard time when it comes to hills. It's plain to see after the hill challenge that the Almera definitely gets all 3 points, while the city follows suit with 2 points and then the Emgrand with a single point. That'll do it for our Comparo, and by the virtue of the numbers, in third place is the Nissan Almera with 13 points. Now, I quite enjoy the drive of the Nissan Almera. It's very peppy. Even though it's the smallest engine, that turbo and the amount of torque that you've got in there is actually very, very fun, especially as we demonstrated going up the twists and the high hills and whatnot. So going up to Baguio, obviously, definitely gonna make it. A good middle ground is second place, which is the Honda City, coming in with 15 points. It's not as peppy to drive as the Almera, but it's a good middle ground because you're relaxed and it doesn't feel like the car is struggling for pace. Although the interior may need a little bit of help compared to the winner, but still, like I said, it's a good middle ground, which means obviously that the winner is the Emgrand by a single point. Not much, but still the winner nonetheless at 16 points. The power of the engine wasn't really there compared to these two, but the plushness and the size of the automobile and what value that you get for your money because you get so much car is actually one of the main reasons why this particular unit won. I got a question for you though. Do you agree with our choices? Do you agree with the results? The good thing about this is if that you don't or whether you do please comment on the section below so we can find out exactly what it is that you're looking for. What other tests could we have done? What other tests can we do in the future the next time we do a Comparo? Folks, in any case, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like our channels because we love creating these videos just for you guys. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay safe and see you soon.